Got a Pioneer SA9500 Mark II. This one here you've seen before. I had it when it was making all kinds of strange noises and humming, and I replaced a bunch of caps in the power supply. Nope! I didn't check the tone control to make sure the bass and treble worked. I just kind of listened to it, flipped some of the switches, cleaned the switches, and assumed everything was good, and it turns out that the tone control wasn't working. So let's see why the tone control is not working and see if we can get it to work. Tone control doesn't appear to have any effect. It's just almost like the switch itself is not working. Let's take a look at the schematic and see how this tone works on this unit. So here is the control amp, ARGH. If we look over here, we'll see that the signal comes in. This is our left and our right input. We'll just look at the one channel just for simplicity. Signal comes through a preamp stage. This is going to be the switch over here. So in one mode it's in bypass, and in bypass it's picking the signal off right here. Right, if we look at the bypass loop, signal's coming right off of here and going back across over here and to the switch. So when it's in the on position over here, we should be hearing the audio going through the tone control, but it's not making any there's no difference on it. So I mean, it's got to be something in this switch that's bad. It's odd that it affects both channels though. Maybe the switch is physically broken and it's stuck. I guess we need to investigate that switch, so let me pull the board out, and I guess I got to pull the front faceplate off this unit to get at the circuit board. I got to pull that board out because it's obviously something to do with the switch. It has to be something to do with the switch. That's all it can be, because after all, the signal takes two separate paths. One goes through the switch, one bypasses and goes to the switch, and the other one goes through the actual tone circuit and then ends up back at the switch. I guess we can scope it and see the two distinct paths. See that it's actually controlling something through the bass and treble controls and getting to that tone switch. I think I found the reason why the tone control is not working, the tone switch is not working. Somebody has bypassed it. I was sure I listened to that. I'm sure when I had this in, I guess I wasn't listening close enough. Maybe it was just the it sounded like it was changing, but it wasn't, because obviously that tone control wasn't working. Somebody has bypassed that. Probably because the switch itself is shot. But they've got it kind of bypassed, they've got it jumpered on both on and off at the same time. So let's just undo that solder blob there and see why, whether it's working. The guy that owns this wants me to put a light bulb in, so he's going to be surprised when I charge him for the light bulb. I had to pick up a special bulb for it. I think I paid about $7 for a stupid light bulb for this thing, for one that will fit in there, because this runs at it's a low voltage bulb. It's only like a 12 volt bulb, but open circuit it's like 60 volts. There's a dropping resistor on there, but even at that, putting a dropping resistor on and putting an LED in, because the voltage fluctuates, it just did not work very well. So I'm just letting my soldering iron warm up. It will unbridge that switch. I get a sneaking suspicion that the switch may have been problematic, and this was someone's way of fixing it quickly. was just to bypass it and short it out. Okay, let's see if it works now. Wait for this thing to kick in. Which is on, or the tone board's not working. Which is on? That's on there. Okay. Maybe the tone board doesn't work, and that's why it was bypassed. Level is a lot lower coming out of it than going in. Listen when I bypass it. Oh, the switch has got a problem too. I gotta watch out. There's like plus or minus 60 volts on this board. Okay, the output's low. Let's find out why. So our levels could be low because there might be a couple caps that have gone bad. C49 and C50. These are both 4.7 at 50 volts, and they couple the output from the tone amplifier to the switch here, and they have a 100K resistor that goes to ground. So if these caps were weak, the signal would be much weaker. So we're going to change C49 and C50 on the tone board and see if that returns the levels. It's these yellow caps right here. Actually, the output caps aren't the yellow ones, they're these ones here in behind them. And they're solid caps. Those are not your typical electrolytics. So I checked them. They're measuring the capacity on them is normal. I'm going to put the meter on and just see where we're losing the signal. Or not the meter, the scope. I'm going to take a look at the scope and see where the signal is dropping. I just got to put something in here to insulate this so that I can set the board down while I'm testing, because obviously we don't want to short anything out. So let's grab some paper or something to put under here just so that I don't have a short circuit when I can test, because there's there's plus and minus 48 volts on the board. So I've been testing the signal, and I mean it's much lower coming back out of the board than going in. When I put it in bypass, of course, if we look at the input versus the output, there's the input and there's the output, right? They're roughly the same. Right, I switch the tone control off and it's much louder. Tone control on. If I crank up the bass and the treble, there's my input. I guess my input there, and there's my output. Roughly the same. When I turn the tone control off, input, output. When I turn the tone control on, it's roughly the same. What doesn't make any sense on this is, now see, somebody clearly modified this thing before. The guy that brought this to me gave it to me. And I clearly didn't catch this the last time it was in because I probably didn't even check the tone controls. This is the one that was brought in for it humming. And I changed the caps in the power supply. Turned it on, tested it. I'm sure I rotated the tone controls, but whether I paid much attention to them when I was listening to it or not. But it was bypassed. Somebody bypassed that board. Here's our common point right here. So our signal starts out, goes through this buffer. Our signal starts out here. There's two capacitors. One feeds to the bypass, this one here. Signal comes, so the signal's strong here. Signal feeds down, and this one goes over to the switch, bypass, and then to the output. The other one goes through this cap and through the tone controls. So we have attenuation happening somewhere between here and here. But our attenuation level is the same on both channels, which means something has to influence both circuits, the gain on both circuits, the same way. Now they're both fed the positive 48 and negative 48 supply. Even though these yellow caps here look like they've been changed out before, the problem obviously is on the tone board. So I'm going to change these ones out. I'm going to change, actually, I'll probably change all the electrolytics on here just to be sure. So we're going to pull one of these out. We'll just take a look at it. It's 100 microfarad, 16 volt. So those ones, I'll probably change these out. I'll probably change all these ones out here on the board. I think the 4.7s are probably okay. These are solid caps, but the electrolytics, let's just take a look at and see how they are. So here's the first one. I'll just check the calibration of my meter by testing a new capacitor. This is a new 100 microfarad cap at 16 volts. And here is the one that I just pulled. Let's just see how bad this one is, if it's bad at all. Yeah, 1.3 microfarads. Definitely bad. I don't even need to put the ESR meter on here to show you that it's bad, because it has no capacity. So the ESR is going to be off the end of the scale on these ones. And it's open. So we're going to change out, I'm going to change all four. I don't even bother to check the other ones. I'll just change all four of them out, and then we'll check the other ones here. And I think we'll probably get the tone board working a little bit better than it has been, hopefully working properly by the time I'm all done here. I have to get a chuckle. My wife would just send me a text message. One of our circle of friends, one of their kids attended the Pride parade last week, and I guess picked up more than they had expected, because they brought home COVID, and now my circle of friends are all suffering from it this week. I'm thinking, damn, I'm glad I wasn't invited out to a party last Saturday at their place. Otherwise, I might be suffering the effects of it. Been able to avoid it for the last 2.5 years. I'd like to continue avoiding it. Okay, let's just try this. I just power it up. Oops, I guess it might help if I plug it in. I want to try it with just these caps replaced first, these four, and see whether it's fixed the problem with the tone control. So let's tone out. Hey. That's me touching the board. fixed it. So that was our problem on this tone board, was those four yellow caps that were bad that I just swapped out. I haven't done these ones yet. I think I'm going to pull these ones out and just measure them and see how they are for ESR and how they are for capacity. These four. So if you got no tone working on one of these units, or the level when you switch the tone in is low, check the 4 yellow caps. Well, they're probably not yellow because these have been replaced before. Someone's replaced these. And by the way, they're Nippon. What was it? Nippon Chemicon. But the 4 caps in the middle of the board here, because I say those are not originals. So these ones here. That one, that one, that one, and that one. I'll give you the location of them. Where's my layout? That's not it. Where's the layout? Here it is. They're 100 by 16, and of course C32, C48, C47, and C31. So 31, 32, 48, and 47. Let's take a look at them on the schematic here. So these were the ones that were at fault. As I say, when I was testing it, my signal was good here, right? My signal was good here. And this is the bypass one that goes over to the switch. My signal was good here, but where I was losing the signal was in the amplifier stages here. These are the 4 caps. They're in the negative 15 volt, and they basically filter the negative supply after going through the dropping resistor, because this is on the minus 31.2 volt line. And when I measured the minus 31.2 volts, it was coming up at like minus 30.9. And the plus 31.2 was coming up at like plus 30. I think it was plus 32, a little bit higher. This one was a little bit lower. But these are the caps here that ultimately were the cause of the failure. Normally, normally you would think if a capacitor goes bad, you'd have one channel that goes out and the other channel would be fine, and that would be the case if only 1 or 2 of them had failed. But in this case, all 4 of these caps had failed. Now, they're running 16 volt capacitors. They're running them at 15 volts. And one might say, well, just up it to 25. And you can do that. You certainly can go the next voltage up. But there's a reason that they choose these values. Is because it affects the ESR, first of all, of the capacitor. And it also will affect the sound. So when you're dealing with capacitors that are in the audio circuit, in the path, if you're just dealing with power supply filters, you can go higher. But when you're dealing with something that is directly in the audio path, you want to use the value that the manufacturer or the designer has picked, because he picked that value for a reason. Yes, they're running it at 15 volts, so you know that down the road they're going to fail again, but that down the road is probably 20 years from now, right? They've been changed before. It's obvious because they were a different type of capacitor, and the board looked like they had been changed at some point, and they failed again. So that ultimately was what was causing the failure on this. I'm going to just check the remaining caps, these black ones. I'm just going to pull them out and just check them and see. I'll check them for capacity and ESR, and if they're okay, I'll leave the original ones in. If they look like they're starting to go bad, then we'll swap them out too. I was talking to the guy that owns this last night, and I was telling him I was making progress on it. But as I say, this is one that I had before for the capacitor problem on the preamp. It was humming, and we've changed the caps out there. And I went and I changed a couple more in the power supply. Not that they were real bad, but just because we've changed them. Yeah, these ones are also bad. So I'm going to swap out these 4 caps as well, and that should do it for this one, I think. Don't want it to get too expensive. But let me grab some more. I got to get 4. These are also Nippon. But let me grab some more. These are 35 volt 100. I should have some of those. We'll swap out those 4, and then that should do it for this one. figured I better turn the fan on. I got the door open and the neighbors got their radio playing. They got outdoor speakers and I can hear it in the background. And I don't need the microphone picking that up, but if I turn the fan on in here, the ceiling fan, it makes enough noise that it drowns it out on the microphone. You can still hear it in the background, but it won't be at a level that will be a concern to
the radio in the background is actually never a problem when I'm talking over it. It's just that if I'm not doing anything, then sometimes it can be picked up in the background and can cause an issue. So I always like to have some noise going, like a fan or something running in the background, just to mask any sounds that come in from outside. I've never had an issue yet, and I don't want one, because it means that I have to either mute the sound or go back and re-edit it and cut it out, so try to avoid it altogether.
Alright, I think I can just go ahead and remount this board. I've already tested these other caps. I tested these before because I was going down that road thinking maybe one of these ones was bad. But when I tested it, it was fine. And they're a solid cap. These ones are, I think, what are these ones? What brand are these? Does it say on them what they are? Or they're a different brand. They're a solid type cap. More like a, well, they're not a tantalum, but they are, they don't have the rubber base. They're a epoxy filled base, so they don't tend to dry out to the same degree as conventional caps do. Screws in here, remount this, then I can test the unit and get it reassembled and get it the hell out of here. Same fellow owns this one that owns the crown that I'm working on, that I'm still having issues with because we got the IC, and you haven't seen, I've showed you guys these. I don't think I've done the second video for it yet, or did I? Oh, maybe I did. But we got the IC into it, and a transistor was found bad, and I got a transistor for it, but it's got voltage on one speaker. So I've kind of put that one aside so I can clean up some other stuff. I got to get back on that and work on that again. But this one here now should be good to go. Let's just power it up and make sure everything works. I'm in bypass mode, I think, now for the tone. Tone control on. Guess I gotta wait for some music to play. Here's the tone controls. So, tone control's working now. Let me get the faceplate on and we'll get this one back together. One other thing I got to do on this is because I went to a 12 volt bulb when the original one was like an 8 volt. So I'm just going to increase the incandescent bulb. I'm just going to increase the value or decrease the value of the resistor. I'm just going to put a 2.2K. It's a 1K ohm resistor on here. Now I'm going to add a 2.2K in parallel. That should bring the voltage up enough just to get enough light out of the light bulb so that we can actually see it, because it lights up but it's not very bright. And then we'll check the brightness of the light. Make sure that the light is going to be bright enough. The lamp is fed with AC right off the transformer, so it's like 48 volts AC that's got to be dropped down, and that's why they're using a dropping resistor. So let's just see how bright the light is now. Whether the light is bright enough to see. Yeah, light's bright enough now. That looks pretty normal. I'll show you guys the brightness of the light. We look at the meter, the lamp is getting about 7 volts across it, so it should never burn out. You don't want it to be too bright because that'll just reduce the life of the lamp. Indeed, the light glows. It's not super bright, but hey, it glows, and that's really all you need, is to be able to see that the power is on. doing this with pliers just so you guys can see me slip and scratch the faceplate. Not. That's not going to happen. All right, this one I guess is pretty much all done. So to sum it up, what's been done on this now in total, the last time I had it, the power supply caps were done down here. I've done the caps on the tone board because the tone board was non-functional due to the last person that worked on it bypassing it. I didn't even catch that. I probably didn't even listen to the tone, you know, because personally I don't use any tone controls. When I'm listening to music, everything's always set flat because I have a good enough system with good enough speakers that it sounds best if not altered. So I never use tone controls. My amplifier doesn't even have bass and treble controls or loudness. It's just a straight power amplifier. It has none of that on it. Anyway, this one's sounding good. I'm just going to get the top cover on this one now, and then I can get this one off the bench and move on to the next one. Here we go, all back together. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you in the next one. Bye.